Hi everyone, my name is Likoko, and some of you I have met, we have worked with, and so some of you know me very well. But for those who we haven't met before, I'm one of the 3 PhDs who have been affiliated to this research project from beginning of 2016. And Today, I just want to talk to us briefly about the research experience that we've had, some of the interactions we've had with different people in Kisumu, and specifically to focus on my area of research, which has been looking at the experiences of small-scale women entrepreneurs, who we are calling survival entrepreneurs in this study. And to just see what are some of their ambitions and aspirations, what are some of their challenges, and how are they managing to negotiate and navigate that in their day-to-day life as entrepreneurs. So in the following slides, I'm going to talk through the different parts of the research and some of the things that we've been able to discover. So this research, the focus area is Kisumu City. And in Kisumu City, we looked at the urban and peri-urban areas where food production is happening, particularly crop production. And so we looked at 2 slum areas. We focused on Ubunga and we focused on Nyalenda. And these were entry points, mainly where the food is being produced, but also these are also places where women who sell vegetables in different marketplaces source their vegetables from. And for women who are in a context where urban food security is a challenge, women are contributors to, these women who are producing food in these areas are contributors to solving the problem of urban food insecurity. And so as they do that, they also still continue to experience challenges where they are not able to earn enough income. And so this is a problem. And of course, we still don't have enough for people to eat. And then lastly, there's also a general assumption that farming only happens in rural areas and not in urban areas. And so the focus of this research, therefore, has been to look at women who are engaged in food entrepreneurship and farming in these urban places, and looking at what are some of the challenges they experience individually and cumulatively as people in the same trade, but also what are some of the characteristics that they show in terms of, for example, how much capital do they put in their business, where do they access this capital from, what are some of the hours that they spend in their business actively, why do they choose these hours, what are some of their business locations and why do they choose them, what are the skills that they use. We've also looked at what are some of the challenges that they experience in the different locations that they actually run their businesses. And but beyond that, also looking at what are the tools they use, what are the technologies that are available for them, what are the risks that they experience and how do they manage to overcome these risks? What are the structures that are there to support them in their environment? What's not just the environment physically, but also the policy environment? What are some of the government structures that they interact with, and how do they support them, or how do they facilitate their businesses? And lastly, also looking at what are some of the relationships that they use in their different businesses, so that they can engage and keep growing and keep moving in their business. From 2016, as I said, I've been meeting with different of you in different places. I've been in the markets. I've been on the streets with the different women as they sell. I've actually spent time in the different marketplaces, just talking to the women as they sell and observing how they are going about their business. I've spent time in the farms, all the way in Nyamtoe, all the way to Obunga, the people who are farming on the roadside near the railway, and spent time just through conducting surveys. We've conducted focus group discussions, and we've had different conversations just to understand what are some of the issues that arise from urban and peri-urban agriculture. I've also talked to some of the leaders in the community, spent time in the county offices, and talked to mainly the people focused on agriculture, but also maybe entrepreneurship, and just to hear the side of policy and what are some of the key issues and the focus areas that are there. And it's been a combination of different methods of trying to understand what is the reality, what are some of the experiences that different groups and how different people also understand this challenge. And thank you very much. You have been very generous with information, and you have given me a lot of insight into the different issues that you experience. And this has been very insightful for this research. The knowledge that I've gotten through the different people in this room and others has been very, very useful for this research. As we conducted the research, some of the similarities that stood out in the two different research locations, which is Nyalenda and Obunga, include the fact that they're both farming in very restricted urban pieces of land. And so there's a lot of intensive farming in very small portions of land. There's also the proximity to residential areas. It's quite densely populated residential areas, that is. Which means that a lot of the people who come to farm to purchase produce from the farms are actually from the neighborhood communities, many of them, with exceptions of a few. There's also similarity in the sense that they all focus on fast-growing crops. So there's a lot of focus on vegetables. Reason being that it allows them to, grow more in a smaller piece of land, but also make higher profits over time. But there are also a lot of differences in the two locations, especially with amongst the farmers. One of the big differences is that in the Nyalenda side, some of the farmers are actually larger scale in terms of they have bigger pieces of land that they can farm, so they're able to supply to more people. Where we even see, whereas in Obunga and in other parts of Nyalenda, where the pieces of land are small, they measure bunches of vegetables. This ones even can weigh because they have bigger volumes. Some of the differences is also structural. On the Obunga side, there's a lot of other significant, like the highway sort of is competing with the land for farming. There's also the factories, the railway line, the sewage plant. So the pieces of land in between are much, they're actually broken down in portions, and you can actually see which one is closer to which big development infrastructure. Whereas on Nyalenda side, once the farms begin, they sort of flow towards the riverland, the shores of the river. And this also has unique challenges for Nyalenda, where they have to struggle with things like hippos that come to eat their products, but also that some of the farmers are actually able to specialize only in traditional vegetables, which require more acreage, more like bigger pieces of land for you to make significant profits. So we see a greater focus of that on the Nyalenda side. And also amongst the sellers, we see a difference in that for a lot of, one of the similarities is that we find a lot of the producers are also sell not only in their land, but some of them actually produce and later in the day go to sell on the streets. And we see more of this on the Obunga side than we see it on the Nyalenda side. Whereas in Nyalenda, a lot of the farmers sell at the farm and they don't actually go out to sell in other locations. And other people come to take the vegetables for them to sell. So all this translates into different experiences for the different entrepreneurs. For the small-scale business women, both from Obunga and Nyalenda, it was clear that Kibuye market is a very central part of where they either source or, in the occasional case, supply their products. So we also took time to interview and just get to understand the unique challenges and the connections between the peri-urban agribusiness and also Kibuye market, which is, of course, a regional wholesale market. And one of the big differences between the different selling points and Kibuye is that definitely they sell bigger volumes, so the income levels are much higher. And even though there's elements of small-scale survival entrepreneurs, their dynamics are different because the clientele who go there is different and the volumes that they sell is also different. So and this eventually brings out a major difference between the different selling points that we have. Some of the interesting discoveries is that from the survival women entrepreneurs that we interviewed and interacted with, is that they can be categorized into two main groups. One is some who are sporadic or seasonal, and some who are consistent in the sense that they actually engage in business through all the different seasons and the different months consistently over time. And also of the two, they can also be further categorized into other two categories where some of them are only making enough money to buy food for themselves and their families, and some are actually able to make enough money to buy food and reinvest in the business in a manner that the business is growing gradually over time. And so out of these two major categories, I was able to classify the women entrepreneurs into 4 groups as listed above. And from the categorizations, it's clear that the different groups, even though they all fall under the umbrella of survival entrepreneurs, they all need different strategies to be able to both operate as business people, but also to be able to grow further. An overlying theme for most of the business people is that they want their business to grow. They want to earn more income. They want to get more income at the end of the day. That was a common theme amongst all the survival entrepreneurs. But because of these different characteristics that they have, they all need a different strategy so that this can become a reality. One of the things that also stood out is that for the women, the amount of time they spend in the business and the amount of where they choose to actually locate their business is greatly determined by their household responsibilities. And this, of course, has an impact eventually on how much their business can grow. And because it has an impact on their family, on their children and caregiving roles that they actually have in the home space. Another key thing that came out from this research is talking to the women who are engaged in the different forms of business. There's a desire to not only grow their business, but also to conduct their business in an environment that is supportive, in the sense that, have good infrastructure and also have access to things like capital and access to services that could support their business, like, for example, training and savings schemes and other supportive strategies. And also talking to the county officials and looking at the policies from the county in the document analysis, it's clear that the county prioritizes the need for a secure food environment in the county of Kisumu, but also a supportive environment for the small-scale businesses. However, there is a clear mismatch in the desires and ambitions and what is actually happening on the ground, because there is a sense of lack of alignment of the development policies that are being implemented, and the experiences of the women in the different whether they're processing or selling in the market or even producing in the farms. So this is a great opportunity area for the county development goals and for the county policy makers and actors at different levels to actually be able to align the county strategies to what the different categories of women experience. And I think one of the ways to do this is to bear in mind that even though there's a whole spectrum of people in entrepreneurship, it's important to have to look at what are some of the different bottlenecks, challenges, and opportunities that are there, not only for the large-scale entrepreneurs and the small-scale entrepreneurs, but look further in the small-scale entrepreneurs and find out who amongst these micro-entrepreneurs are actually survival entrepreneurs, and what are some of the structures that are there that are actually locking them out of accessing the benefits that exist. And this way, then, people who engage in urban and peri-urban agribusiness can be a really valuable resource in addressing food insecurity in Kisumu and even in other areas. I think, and this sort of provides an opportunity for the women to actually grow from their survivalist state to increase their income and be able to advance towards growth entrepreneurship in the long run. In a nutshell, that is a summary of some of the highlights and the process of this research. And I'd like to just invite, hope that in the coming days we can use these findings to support the work of women food entrepreneurs, but also to enhance food production so that we are all working towards ensuring that not only are we having a food secure community, but we are also ensuring that the women are working in a business environment that is supportive and supportive of their growth aspirations. Thank you very much.